Dr. Thomas Lovejoy is my guest today. He is now a senior fellow at the United Nations Foundation, and I'm going to ask him what he thinks the future of nature might look like in a post-COVID world.
So I think this actually gives us an incredibly important opportunity to build a different kind of future than we were headed for before COVID-19 had its huge impact. And because it's abundantly clear to anybody who looks at it that we suffered because of the way we were treating nature, wild animal markets, wild animal trade, this is our moment to build a much more sustainable future. It's a really important moment because we, in fact, as you suggest, have been doing a pretty shocking job in terms of how we've been treating biodiversity, dealing with climate change, dealing with degradation of ecosystems. Basically, this should be a moment in which humanity recognizes it's time to embrace nature, to restore nature, and to build a much more biological basis for the support of our civilization.
In your opinion, how should we think about this moment of COVID as we think of nature, and what is it that we should do?
Little known to most people, when I was doing my PhD in the Amazon studying birds in the late 1960s, I was also studying the antibodies those birds had to various arthropod-borne viruses. So I understand very well how all natural systems are circulating pathogens, and that the challenge is to avoid disrupting those patterns, which climate change is doing in a very serious way, to avoid future pandemics. I think the really big way to look at this is actually this is a moment to restore the biological functioning of this planet, to avoid any more climate change than 1.5 degrees, to avoid the loss of the projected million species, and all the other assorted environmental problems that we've created. It is a moment to embrace biology as the solution going forward, and to do it in a comprehensive way that provides a better outcome for ourselves and other forms of life.
What has surprised you in this moment of COVID?
Well, in retrospect, given time to think about it, the scale of this pandemic is not really a surprise. We've been coming close to them many, many times and been lucky that only now has one really become truly pandemic. I think in terms of the overall reaction of the global community, it has been far less of an international collaborative exercise than clearly it should have been. And in the countries I spend the most time in, the United States and Brazil, it has not been a cohesive national effort as it logically should be, paying attention to science on a daily basis.
What would be the great lessons of taking nature seriously, if you will?
So I think just to begin with, that the planet actually works as a linked physical and biological system. It is not just a physical system in which we can do whatever we wish to the biology of the planet with no consequence. The biology of the planet and the biodiversity, in fact, is our most important asset. As I once said about the propensity of organisms to recreate themselves, thank God for sex, right? And we've been living in a world of illusion that none of that really mattered. And I think we got a very severe wake-up call with the pandemic. We should turn it to our advantage and recognize that we did it to ourselves, and that the way forward is to embrace nature and build a much better biological base for our civilization.
As you look at everything that we are doing or not doing, do you have hope?
I don't think there's any point in not having hope. Hope is the way forward, and especially with the regenerative capacity of biological systems, that is a strong reason to have hope and to embrace nature and move forward.